minutes.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, ministers, for being here and officials for being here. It's great to be on this committee, and I acknowledge that the work that has to be done on this. We had a difference of opinion in the previous Parliament, but that difference of opinion is now settled, and now we've got to make it work. If I can misquote Lady Macbeth, who said, "If it were done when 'tis done, then 'twere well it were done quickly." In our case, it's "'twere well it were done right." And that's our responsibility. So I'm going to go back to the Liberal Party election pledge, which said that the promise was to create an all-party committee to monitor and oversee the operations of every government department and agency with national security responsibilities. That was the Liberal pledge. Now, what we see in, for example, Section 14 of the bill is, a veritable kitchen sink of exclusions from what the committee can look at. Queen's Privy Council, cabinet documentation, and so on. I get that, although PCO is very broad sometimes in their definition of what is cabinet documentation. So we have to ward against that. Ongoing defense intelligence activities, I get that. Disclosure in the witness protection program, sources, I get that. Then information relating directly to an ongoing investigation carried out by law enforcement agency that could lead to prosecution, which could be pretty well anything that the security agencies are doing. So I guess my first question to you is, how can we make sure that this committee is effective if there are so many exclusions, to the extent that anything that is ongoing is excluded? Aren't we just a second Security and Intelligence Review Committee at that point? Or what is so special that we can say that this committee can do when ongoing activity is all excluded from the purview of the committee?
Well, that section, Mr. Clement, and again, welcome, refers to a police investigation, not any ongoing activity, but an ongoing police investigation.
But presumably every investigation has a police investigation, or many do. Many will have a police
well,
component to it.
maybe not. But the objective here is to make sure that the work of the committee is not impinging on a police investigation and in some way compromising that investigation. If there is more appropriate language that you might consider or recommend, we're certainly prepared to take it into account. It's not intended to seal off a great area from public scrutiny. That is exactly the opposite of what we intend here. So if there is some more precision in that language, that we could maybe consult with the Department of Justice and see how it could be more appropriately phrased.
I appreciate that offer, Minister, because I think we all want this committee. If we're going to have a committee, let's make sure it's effective.
Exactly.
And not wasting everyone's time.
That's the whole point.
Similarly with the PM's ability to redact, and I believe, Minister Shager, in your remarks, you turned to that topic, and you said that this is to protect, it's to only be used sparingly to protect certain classified information. So again, I point to the language in the bill, which is broad and expansive, and I put it to you that if there's a way that we can take what you have said in your remarks and apply them to amendments to this legislation, that might be helpful to define exactly what the PM can redact and what he or she cannot, because otherwise it's too expansive and the committee could be left without critical information.
I take it you're referring to basically here Section 21, and again, if you think the language there doesn't properly capture our intention, we can look seriously at remodeling that language, because the only purpose for a reference to the Prime Minister is to protect classified data.
And similarly with ministerial vetoes, again, I understand the need for sparing and rare cases of ministerial vetoes, but again, we don't want to drive a Mack truck through that and leave the committee toothless.
And one of the disciplines on the process, the committee could certainly do this, but if you think we need to make it explicit, empowering the committee to report on the number of times they've run into a difficulty with a minister. And simply that public exposure would draw to public attention whether or not there's a chronic problem.
Can I now turn to the role of the announced chair of this committee, Mr. McGuinty? I'm not sure which one of you wants to take this on, but first of all, when Mr. McGuinty was announced as the member for Ottawa South was announced, he was reported to be receiving a bump up in his salary of about $42,000. Has that started yet? So he is.
No.
He's not being paid right now?
No, there is at this stage there is no committee, therefore there is no chair, therefore there is no payment.
But I note that I seem to know that there is a chair, and because it was announced by the government. So I'm just wondering, what was his role when he visited London, for example? I believe that there was a meeting with MI5 or one of the British organizations. Can you elaborate a little bit on that?
He participated in discussions both in London and here in Ottawa with various representatives of the UK committee and their security organizations, just to assist in the work of consulting in advance of this legislation.
Well, and the other thing is about meaningful consultation with the parties and with Parliament. I'm hoping you'll. Well, I would put it to you, sir, that appointing or declaring a committee chair before the bill has even been put before this committee or before voted on by Parliament, that's a fairly unusual and curious procedure.
The point, Mr. Clement, of the consultation was to get going as rapidly as possible. There was a window of time back in January, February, when I had the opportunity, some space on the calendar to engage in the consultation, and I wanted to be sure that in that process, whether the consultation was here or in London, that I had the benefit of another set of eyes and ears, and someone that could participate with me in that process. It all helped to refine the detail that went into the legislation, but there was no special remuneration for that. A committee chair only gets paid when the committee exists and the chair is officially in place.
Thank you.